Mujeeb Khan from the Department of Political Science at the University of California-Berkeley in the US. Great to have you on our special program today. Now, you are the author of the lead chapter in the book, Turkey's July 15th Coup, What Happened and Why. You've also done extensive research on the Gulen movement. Why did the Gulenist movement infiltrate the Turkish state?
Well, you have to understand that this goes back to the founding of the Republic and the ideological conflict between this hardline version of secularism and sort of more religious groups in Turkey and the religious Anatolian Turkish population. So as the more religious inclined people were purged, you know, if you attended Friday prayers during this period, up until Turgut Özal came to power, or if your wife wore a headscarf and so on, you were often purged from positions of power in the military, in politics, even in the economy. So in a way, it was a reaction to that. But what happened is that so the Gulen movement emerged in that kind of milieu, but it became basically a cult under Gulen's leadership. And I think it's important to understand that people get confused. The movement at a theoretical level did espouse democracy, civil society, interfaith dialogue, and all of these good things. And at some level, it may have believed in that. But the problem with the Gulen movement always was that it never internalized that in practice. And so it always functioned in a non-transparent, top-down, secretive fashion. And even when Gulen went to the United States, you know, he escaped the February 28th soft coup, and though he supported it when it happened, but that wasn't enough to save him, so he escaped to the United States. But even in the United States, the movement never internalized what it was preaching at a theoretical level.
Okay.
This goes back, yeah.
I just want to jump in and tell us exactly what caused that conflict with President Erdogan's government. Okay,
so the conflict first emerges right after Mavi Marmara, and that's very telling in 2010. And because President Erdogan had taken a very strong position in defense of the Palestinians, and Gulen found this very troubling. Also, Gulen was targeting Hakan Fidan, head of MIT, or National Intelligence Organization, because it was the one agency they had not infiltrated. And there's a broader international and regional context to this. Fidan and Erdogan were seen as promoting democracy, promoting sort of, you know, a Muslim nationalism as well. And this was seen as very troubling. First, and remember, this is in the context of the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring just happened as well. So, and Turkey was an inspiration for that. And so Turkey and Qatar were seen as very dangerous by Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Israel. And Gulen, in turn, was seeking to ingratiate himself with these powers and also in Washington. And so he thought, so his way of ingratiating himself and getting power was to serve their interests, essentially.
Okay.
And that's what he was seeking to do, and to eliminate anyone who stood in the way. So that was certainly Hakan Fidan, and ultimately it was then Prime Minister Erdogan.
And let's talk about the US. He is there in Pennsylvania. Yes. That's what we understand. Why hasn't he been extradited? Why is the US refusing to do so? And how strong is the evidence against him?
Well, that's a good question. And as your intro just showed, the evidence is overwhelming that the Gulen movement was involved in the coup, its rank and file cadres, and that Gulen himself did, and you know, the consensus of those of us who've studied this movement for many years is it would be impossible. We had a workshop on this at the University of Utah, and the leading Western academics concluded that the coup attempt would have been impossible for the Gulenist officers to carry out without direct orders from Fetullah Gulen himself. And the evidence, as you saw with Kemal Batmaz and Adil Oksu's flying to the U.S. just a few days before the coup, and then flying back again, and having, on all the trips, have met with Fetullah Gulen and followed his orders, that the evidence is overwhelming. It's stronger than the evidence that was there against Osama bin Laden following the 9/11 attacks. So why is the U.S. Claiming that there isn't enough evidence presented by the Turkish government to indict Mr. Gulen? On the face of it, this is completely a farcical claim because, following RICO statutes in the United States, the evidence that exists that all of these people were members of this organization engaged in racketeering and criminal activities would have long led to an indictment and prosecution in the U.S. They've, put people in jail. Mob bosses are now the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers after the insurrection in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th on far less evidence. So the reason for those of us who study the movement is quite clear. We knew, going back many decades, that Gulen was working in a lot of ways as an intelligence asset for the U.S. as well, through his network of schools from Central Asia to the Balkans. And there were, influence operations as well. He for a long time, he was known to be an intelligence asset in that way, to ingratiate himself in Western corridors of power. So that would be the explanation for why they find it impossible to prosecute him.
Mujeeb Khan from the Department of Political Science at the University of California. It's been great to get your perspective and analysis. Thank you so much.